Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Is this better? Great. So I'm here to specifically talk a little bit about something that we all may or may not recognize as a problem. And it is a challenge that's taking place right now in the industry with autonomy, and that is the workforce. So as a representative of the Connected Vehicle Trade Association and Mobile Comply, we educate workforce. And so what I want to talk about right now is as we evolve and as the information becomes more available and as the industry evolves, you have a disconnect in the workforce. So something that we have to keep our eye on is, if you notice what I have on the screen here, we have now rapid technology development that's going on, and it has met now the industrialized process of automotive. So when we start analyzing the skills gaps that are currently available and the deficit of the workforce that exists today, we already have a huge problem. So never before have we seen where we have very large industry competing with the smaller industry and with folks that are trying to develop and innovate new products for the same talent. We have a high concentration of engineers right here in Michigan. We are the home of the auto. However, we still have the need to have more and more education. We need to partner with the universities. We need to have industry partnering together with high schools and with the elementary schools to be able to teach these jobs that don't even exist yet. So you have engineering when it comes to the vehicles, but you also have engineering when it comes to the transportation side, which Matt Smith is going to talk about once I'm finished. So if you think about the people that are engineering and designing the roads, and you think about the people that are engineering and designing the vehicles, and then you think about the level of skill set that they need to possess to also have the computing capabilities and some of the artificial intelligence that we heard about earlier, as well as the cybersecurity, it's going to take more workforce. We already have, I used an example earlier today, we've had examples in the workforce where there's just not enough. And if we are going to be able to develop and innovate and grow these new jobs, because new jobs will evolve out of this industry, we have to make sure that we keep our eye on how to develop the workforce of today, how to take them from the traditional engineering side and develop them into the ability to have a stronger presence in autonomous and connected vehicle. But then also, what do we need to do to start encouraging the youth to be involved with these programs, to allow them to understand what is available for them, to be able to develop not only the sensor technologies in the vehicles, but also on the infrastructure side, so that the people that, and the city planners and the state planners and the folks that will be developing the technologies of tomorrow have the skill sets to do so.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Probably talk loud too. So I appreciate the opportunity also to talk in front of everybody today. What I'm going to kind of give a little bit of background is on some of the ways that the Michigan Department of Transportation is supporting the development of a lot of these advanced mobility solutions out there, and then hopefully give a little bit of flavor of some real life instances. You already heard today of a lot of good plans and a lot of development and testing, and hopefully we could tie it all together and really show and bring forward exactly what you heard before about what's actually happening and show that it's real today. So two things. I'm actually going to skip ahead and then go back to that one. A lot of folks ask, okay, great, Michigan Department of Transportation, our historical focus has been roads and bridges and that, and obviously we still have that as a challenge and task as a department. So why are we involved in this mobility space? Why are we involved in this in supporting this technology development? It all comes down to our core role, which is to get people from point A to point B safely. That's why we design and build bridges. It's why we design and build roadways. Same reason that we see the future of this technology as being so important is because we have to get people from point A to point B safely. Despite aggressive engineering and enforcement campaigns and safety improvements on our roadways, safety improvements in the vehicles, we are stuck in the state of Michigan on about 1,000 people a year dying on our roadways. And it's kind of we have to start looking, be a little bit more proactive. We can't start saying, hey, let's spend millions of dollars on widening this intersection to improve roadway safety when we're having diminished returns. You can see our fatality rate is actually going back up as more people are hitting the roadways. Our economy's improved. People are still dying at an alarming rate on the roadways. So that's why we're involved in this space. That's why we're supporting all the development of the technology. That's why our department is investing in this technology and believes that this is the way to go. It's because of the safety and reducing these fatalities and getting back on a downward trend. So going back a little bit, you heard at the very beginning a little bit about connected automation. So I'm not going to talk much about that, but being a Department of Transportation, I really want to point out we don't develop vehicles, we don't develop sensors, we don't develop the technology going inside these vehicles. That's not our role. That's not where we want to be. So we're not really on the autonomous side of things other than doing what we can to support those in Michigan that are developing and deploying that technology. Where we really play a role is in that connectivity part. What can we do to start getting information into the vehicles that these vehicles can start use as another input for making decisions, whether the drivers are making decisions or whether the vehicles in driverless mode are making these decisions. So that's the role that transportation agencies play, and that's the role we see in supporting that development and doing what we can to support what the vehicle manufacturers and these technology companies are doing to bring the technology forward. So what do I mean by what we're doing to support? At MDOT, there's 5 things we're really doing. We're doing what we can to provide some supporting infrastructure that can start communicating with the vehicles out there and start getting some information on board the vehicle platforms. We are helping on the development of vehicle and infrastructure applications. We're not application developers, we're not technology companies, we're Department of Transportation. We're not the ones that are developing the application, but we are the ones that can provide some information that folks can use to start developing and running applications on board vehicles, on board personal devices to start having some safety and mobility benefits. And that's the role we're playing in the application development. There's a lot of data management going on. There's a lot of inputs that are coming on off from vehicles. There's a lot of information out there on our own transportation network that historically has sat in different little places. And the challenge we have now is how can we grasp that information, meld it all together, and start using it as useful information that we can provide back to vehicles, that we can provide back to our policy planners, that we can provide back to our maintenance planners and what have you. So that's another role we're playing. You heard a lot about the different, these last 2 items. You heard a lot about not one person can't, one agency or organization or field can't do it all. So we are really big in partnering. We're trying to partner with our automobile companies, our suppliers, our technology companies, our educational institutions. Actually, I've had the opportunity to work with all 3 people sitting here up front here before, and it's a big thing for us because nobody can do it alone to get that fatality curve down. So it's developing those partnerships, making sure we're getting to the end game, which is driving that fatality rate down and increasing mobility to our system users. And I will talk a little bit about the talent development thing because that's a very big deal. You heard Elaina mention that, and that's a really big deal for us as a Department of Transportation too, is the workforce of the future. So real briefly, if left up to me, I'd spend the next hour talking about all this, and you guys would either filter out, fall asleep, or go back and get seconds, and then somebody would start flagging me and saying I'm taking too much time. So I'm going to try to get this to the Cliff's Notes version of what we're doing to support some of these advanced mobility applications that connected automated vehicles can use. One of the big things that we've been working on is what we call red light violation warning. So where the Department of Transportation comes into play is if you have a highly capable vehicle with sensors, the ability to receive messages, we could start broadcasting information into the vehicle, not just what's the current status of the traffic signal, but what is going to be the status of the traffic signal 5 seconds from now, 10 seconds from now, 30 seconds from now. And then onboard applications, whether it's an application or the vehicle itself, could take that information and do any number of things. It could start providing warnings to drivers inside a driver-controlled vehicle saying, hey, at your current position, rate, and speed, you're about to run a red light. You better do something soon to avoid that from happening. Of course, much quicker than I just said that. Or conceivably, if one of the automotive manufacturers so chooses, they could take some of that same information and maybe even start applying some kind of function to the driving systems to avoid a collision at the intersection. So the key role for us is to make sure we have the ability to get accurate signal phasing and timing information to the vehicle so those applications can start running. You heard something mentioned earlier about weather in Michigan. We also have work zones. If you're not avoiding snow, you're avoiding orange barrels and signs, right? That's pretty much how it is. You know, we have a very limited time in the state of Michigan where we can do road work and not be impacted by the weather. But that does mean there's a lot of road work out there that impacts traffic mobility, impacts traffic safety. So again, working with our goal from the Department of Transportation is to try to get all this accurate information into the vehicle. So either a vehicle driver can use that information, or the vehicle itself can use that information to start making decisions on avoiding work zones to begin with, or knowing where their lane closures are, or knowing where backups due to lane closures are. So it's taking different data sources, being able to provide it to the vehicle, which can, in turn, the vehicle can, through a lot of LiDAR and sensor functions, maybe also has some advanced mapping functions, combine all that together and do something useful from the way of work zones. We also do same thing with a lot of spot weather applications. We want to be able to get pinpoint road weather conditions, not just, hey, you're going to have icy road conditions the next 2 miles ahead. Maybe more like, hey, 1,000 feet ahead, you've got black ice. Be able to broadcast that information into the vehicle, which can combine with a lot of different other inputs, and either provide warnings to drivers, or maybe conceivably the vehicle applications on board can start adjusting driving conditions likewise. So these are just some of the ways that we are actively supporting this application development. And everything I just talked about is not something that we're working by ourselves. We are working with Ford Motor Company, General Motors. I know I probably shouldn't say both in the same word, but a whole consortium of automotive companies working with this to support the development of this technology, because again, we're just on the infrastructure side. We're not vehicle interface experts, we're not vehicle experts, so we're working very closely with a whole host of the automotive companies and suppliers to get this stuff to work. Another great partner that we've worked with over the past couple of years has actually been the U.S. Army. The majority of the U.S. Army's automotive research and development actually happens in Michigan, happens in Warren, Michigan. And they are very active in applying some of their advanced military technology for use in civilian type applications. They are very interested from both battlefield and non-battlefield applications, how they can convoy vehicles and minimize the impacts on drivers. Actually, conceivably, it's probably a lot harder for them to figure that out on a on-road freeway segment than he can off-road, where you don't necessarily have to abide by rules of the road. So they're real big they've been really big into the development of truck platooning technology, which is semi-autonomous technology that uses vehicle-to-vehicle communications, but also input from the roadway infrastructure and the conditions of the road. And actually, one of the first high visible demonstrations actually happened outside of Port Huron last summer, where we were able to partner with the Army and demonstrate this technology. So again, another example of how this technology is real, it's happening, and is hopefully going to be more widespread as we go forward. So a couple of the other high-level things that we're supporting. There's the University of Michigan has the Mobility Transformation Center in M-City down in Ann Arbor. We've been supporters of that from the get-go. I think they've been around for about 3 years now. Huge supporter of the advances in research and development and deployment of advanced mobility technology that's happening there. And that has led really to the next phase of the development, which is American Center for Mobility at the Will Run Airport in Southeast Michigan, where this center, M-City, is about 30 plus acres, focused on early research and early development, whereas American Center for Mobility is about a 300 plus acre site that will be used to take that development further, the technology further, use it for validation and certification of technologies as we go forward. So the American Center for Mobility was designated as a U.S. DOT Automated Vehicle Proving Ground. So that's not an MDOT run facility, but we support everything going on with American Center for Mobility as we go forward. So they're another close partner as we support the development of the technology. The other thing I do want to mention here too is, as much as we like to tout what Michigan's doing in the connected automated vehicle space, and I would argue with anybody that Michigan probably does lead in many aspects, we're not in a vacuum. There are a lot of other states that are working with technology, and we work cooperatively with those states. It's not a cutthroat competition with this. We're all trying to get to the same place. We all want to be sure we're going to be working under true nationwide standards and nationwide formats. We don't want to be doing something different than other states are. So we do have some partnership opportunities. One of the most recent ones, I know this might be painful for a lot of people in the room here, but we have entered into a partnership with the state of Ohio and actually the state of Pennsylvania, along with our respective road agencies, turnpike commissions, and educational institutions, to cooperate on coordinated deployment of some of these automated and connected and automated vehicle technologies. So we're going to focus on freight movement first. We're in discussions with the supplier of truck platooning technology to implement some truck platooning applications along through the 3 states, as well as some work zone application development. So that's just kind of indicative of how life is going on, and things are going on well beyond Michigan, but we're trying to keep abreast of that, keep part of that. So before 2 things I'm going to end up here on. I'm going to talk real briefly about some of the automated vehicle legislation that was brought up earlier, and it's now an official public act. But I do definitely want to build upon what Elaina said before about talent and workforce development. Traditionally, at the Department of Transportation, the technical staff is primarily made up of civil engineers. If I look around my peers, whether it's in Michigan, with local agencies, with MDOT, with my peers in other states, you'll see almost to a T we are all civil engineers that have ended up in this field through one way, shape, or form. As we go forward, and we've gotten involved in this technology through this kind of circumstance, and we've learned on the job, so to speak. None of our schooling has been in the development of automated vehicle applications or what we can do. That's been great. But as this technology and opportunities are exploding, we can't count on that as a model to improve the ability of our workforce to go forward. So we need some of the same skill sets that the small tech companies are looking for, that the automotive companies are looking for. We need to be able to foster that same type of ability and technical knowledge to look beyond roads and bridges, and to look at applications and how can we facilitate communications technologies, how can we work with the data and get information back and forth. This is a big challenge. It's a big challenge for everybody, but it's a big challenge as a state agency to kind of break with what we've done for 100 years, which is civil engineering primarily. So it's a big task for us. We are looking with working with a lot of other partners. One big partner is called the Square One Network that a lot of folks in Michigan support, which is getting into the grammar schools and junior high schools and facilitating and encouraging an interest in robotics and automated driving. And a great story we like to share is there were a team of 4 students that went out into California, the heart of Silicon Valley in San Jose, California last summer, and competed against a bunch of other teams in developing automated vehicles to small-scale model automated vehicles. There was competition amongst them all. The Michigan team won. All 4 were offered a summer internship right on the spot by a large company that was headquartered out of California. That's just kind of indicative of what we're trying to support. We're not trying to support having our talent go to California. What we're trying to support is that development, and just goes to show the level of effort that folks are putting into this workforce development. It's kind of exciting to see everyone realize that as we go forward. So want to leave here today with a brief summary of the recent legislation that was signed for automated vehicles. I think Senator Caldwell, I know he was here earlier, but he was very instrumental. He was a sponsor of the main part of a package of 4 bills that were now signed into law that really supports no longer just the testing, but the operation of automated vehicles. So essentially what this legislation does, this main Public Act 332 has four main parts. Main parts is it allows for no longer just testing of automated vehicles, but actually the operation of automated vehicles. So when automated vehicles start coming to market, they start getting approval and it can get licensed by the Secretary of State. There is no barriers for us in Michigan to do that. There's no public records or testing or validation of technology at the state level. That's not where we want to be. So that this Public Act now allows for full operation of automated vehicles on public roadways. It also allows for the truck platooning technology that I mentioned before. One of the big things about the truck platooning or challenges with truck platooning is we have laws on the books about how far you can follow another vehicle. Those laws are there because of human error. They're there because humans can only react so quick to what vehicles in front of them are doing. So in order to have vehicles, in order to get over that and really see the benefits in safety and fuel efficiency by having vehicles travel closely together, there needed to be some legislation put in place to allow truck platoons that communicate through this technology be exempt from those following distance requirements, and that is now permitted under Public Act 330. Oh, that exemption is now allowed under Public Act 332. The other big part of Public Act 332 is the legislation now also allows for automated vehicle networks. So automated on-demand vehicle networks. So a lot of the things that you heard Emily talk about earlier about the some of the future Ford is doing, not getting into the NHTSA safety standards, but as far as permitting them to operate on Michigan roadways would be allowed under this Public Act. So we thought that was pretty huge to allow that type of technology. And finally, what this Public Act does, it creates a council on future mobility that resides within the Michigan Department of Transportation, but is a council that's reports directly to the governor and the state legislature. So essentially what this council does is allows for at least annually, if not more often, allows this group of experts from industry, heads from the different departments, state departments, so whether it's Secretary of State, State Police, Department of Transportation, to form recommendations to give to the legislature saying, hey, here's what we might want to consider or what you might want to consider in your next legislative session to further advance mobility or advance mobility in the state of Michigan. So that, I know there's a lot of gubernatorial appointments, legislature appointments are going through that right now, but that Council on Future Mobility should be in place soon, and it's pretty exciting because it allowed the state to be a lot more proactive in addressing some future mobility needs rather than taking a couple years to react to changes in the marketplace. So with that in mind, what I'll kind of leave you at is this is my civil engineer self is extremely excited about all the non-civil engineering stuff going on right now. It is truly exciting to be in a state, a region, an area where everyone is going with the common goals. Our automotive partners, our technology partners, and our other local transportation agency partners, we all have the same customer. It's those people using our roadway network. It's those people using our transportation network. We all have the same goals. Make sure they're getting from point A to point B safely. So it's exciting to be able to leverage technology to do this. And it's fantastic that Michigan is really the epicenter for that as we look forward. So thank you for your time this morning. And I think at this point, turn it back over. So thank you.